Chapter 6, The Ultimate Betrayal. A name that changes everything. Julian Carter. The name lingered in Vanessa's mind like a ghost, refusing to fade. She had spent hours combing through records, piecing together scattered clues. Julian wasn't just some forgotten name, he was tied to Adrian in ways that no one had ever spoken about. A former business partner, a man who once stood at Adrian's side, and a man who had vanished without a trace. Now, there were whispers of him resurfacing, under Cassandra's control. Vanessa sat at her desk, scrolling through the files she had gathered. Bank records, legal disputes, confidential transactions. It all led back to the same conclusion. Cassandra had dirt on Adrian, and Julian Carter was at the center of it. Her fingers hovered over her phone. She should call Adrian, confront him, demand answers. But something told her that Adrian wasn't ready to tell her the truth. So, she would have to uncover it herself. The following night, Vanessa found herself in a dimly lit bar on the outskirts of the city. The kind of place where secrets thrived in whispered conversations. Julian Carter was here. Her pulse quickened as she spotted a man sitting alone in the back booth, his face partially hidden in shadows. She approached cautiously. Vanessa Laurent. His voice was smooth, calculating. He didn't sound surprised to see her. She slid into the seat across from him, keeping her expression neutral. "You know who I am." A slow smirk. "Of course. Cassandra made sure I did." Her stomach twisted. "Then you know why I'm here." Julian leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table. "You want to know what I have on Adrian?" Vanessa met his gaze, unwavering. "Yes." A long silence stretched between them before he finally spoke. "I was Adrian's best friend once," Julian said, his tone laced with something bitter. "We built an empire together, but then something happened." Vanessa waited, heart pounding. "I took the fall for a crime I didn't commit," Julian continued. "A financial scandal. Millions lost overnight. Adrian walked away untouched. And me, I was left to burn." She swallowed hard. "You think Adrian set you up?" Julian let out a low chuckle. "No, but he let me take the blame to save himself." Vanessa's breath hitched. That didn't sound like the Adrian she knew. But then again, did she really know him? She shook her head. "That doesn't explain Cassandra's involvement." Julian's smirk widened. "She found me when no one else would, offered me a deal, help her control Adrian, and in return, she'd help me clear my name." Vanessa clenched her fists. So, that was it. Cassandra had been using Julian as leverage, forcing Adrian to stay in line. And all this time, Adrian had been protecting Julian. Vanessa felt something crack inside her. Adrian had never betrayed Julian. He had been trying to save him. He had sacrificed himself. Vanessa barely remembered leaving the bar. Her mind was racing, her emotions in turmoil. She needed to see Adrian. Now. By the time she reached his penthouse, she was running on pure adrenaline. The moment Adrian opened the door, she pushed past him, her eyes blazing. "You lied to me," she accused. Adrian sighed, rubbing his temples. "Vanessa, you let me think you were just some heartless businessman engaged to Cassandra for power," she snapped. "But the truth is, you've been her prisoner this entire time." Adrian's expression darkened. "You don't understand." Vanessa took a step closer, her voice shaking. "Then make me understand." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, finally, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "If I leave Cassandra, Julian goes back to prison." She made sure of it. Vanessa's heart ached. Adrian had been suffering in silence, trapped in an engagement he didn't want, sacrificing his own happiness to protect someone he once considered a brother, and she had almost believed Cassandra's lies. Slowly, Vanessa reached for his hand. "You don't have to do this alone." Adrian looked down at their intertwined fingers, something raw, flashing in his eyes. "I don't see another way out," he admitted. Vanessa tightened her grip. "Then we'll find one." But Cassandra had been watching, and she wasn't about to let Vanessa win. The next morning, the headlines exploded. "Breaking news, Adrian Hawthorne caught in secret affair with Vanessa Laurent." Vanessa's stomach dropped as she stared at the screen. Photos of her and Adrian, too close, too intimate, plastered across every media outlet. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You wanted to play dirty, cousin? Then let's play." Cassandra. Vanessa's blood ran cold. She had underestimated her cousin's cruelty, and now the war had truly begun. Act 4. The Reckoning. Chapter 7. Love, Lies, and Consequences. The Fallout. Vanessa's phone wouldn't stop ringing. She ignored every call, every message. The damage had already been done. Cassandra had executed her attack flawlessly. The scandal was everywhere, on social media, in the newspapers, on television. The other woman, they called her. The homewrecker. She scrolled through the headlines, her chest tightening. Adrian Hawthorne's secret affair with his fiancé's cousin. Billionaire caught cheating on Cassandra Laurent. Wedding canceled. Who is Vanessa Laurent, the woman who stole her cousin's fiancé? Vanessa gritted her teeth. Cassandra had turned this into a spectacle, twisting the narrative to make herself look like the victim. But worst of all, she had succeeded in making Vanessa look exactly like what she wasn't. She hadn't stolen Adrian. Cassandra had never had him in the first place. A sharp knock at her door made her jump. For a second, she thought it would be Adrian. But when she opened it, she found Cassandra standing there instead. Dressed in an elegant white coat, her cousin looked effortlessly composed, except for the wicked gleam in her eyes. Vanessa clenched her jaw. "What do you want?" Cassandra smirked, stepping inside uninvited. "Oh, Vanessa," she said, her tone dripping with mock sympathy. "I just came to check on you. You must be devastated after all this attention." Vanessa crossed her arms. "Cut the act." Cassandra tilted her head, feigning innocence. "I don't know what you mean." Vanessa's patience snapped. "You planned this. You waited until Adrian and I got too close, and then you exposed us." Cassandra's smirk widened. "Of course I did." Vanessa's fingers curled into fists. "You knew Adrian didn't love you. You knew he was only staying because of Julian." Cassandra let out a small laugh. "Oh, sweetheart, you think love has anything to do with this?" She stepped closer, lowering her voice. "This isn't about Adrian's feelings. This is about winning." Vanessa swallowed the bitter taste in her mouth. "You'll never have him," she said, her voice quieter now. Cassandra's smile didn't waver. "But neither will you." And with that, she turned on her heel and walked out, leaving Vanessa standing there, heart pounding. She knew what Cassandra meant. Adrian's reputation was on the line now. His business was already under scrutiny, his image being torn apart in the media. He couldn't afford another scandal. He couldn't afford her. And that was exactly what Cassandra had counted on. Vanessa sat in Adrian's office later that evening, her hands gripping the armrests of the chair. He hadn't spoken since she arrived. Instead, he stood by the window, staring out at the city, shoulders tense. Finally, he turned to face her. "I have to fix this." Vanessa felt the first crack of fear slip through her. "What does that mean?" Adrian hesitated before answering. "I need to put distance between us." The words hit like a slap. Vanessa forced herself to stay calm. "Because of Cassandra?" Adrian sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Because of everything. My company, my investors, they're already threatening to pull out of major deals. And you're being dragged through the mud because of me." Vanessa's throat tightened. "I don't care about the media." "I do," Adrian said sharply. The silence that followed was thick and suffocating. Then, softer this time, he added, "I care about you." Vanessa's breath hitched. Adrian looked exhausted, torn between duty and desire, between what he wanted and what he needed to do. "I can handle this," she insisted. He shook his head. "No, you shouldn't have to." Vanessa's chest ached. "So what? You're just going to let Cassandra win?" Adrian exhaled, his expression pained. "For now." It wasn't fair. She knew why he was doing this, why he was choosing to protect her rather than fight back. But it still hurt. "I thought you weren't afraid of a battle," she whispered. His jaw clenched. "I'm not, but I won't drag you down with me." Vanessa wanted to argue, to make him see that walking away wasn't the answer. But the look in his eyes told her that he had already made his decision. Adrian Hawthorne was sacrificing himself again, and this time she wasn't sure she could stop him. The next morning, Vanessa woke up to yet another headline. Adrian Hawthorne announces split from Vanessa Laurent, reaffirms engagement to Cassandra Laurent. Her entire world seemed to tilt. Her phone buzzed. A call from Adrian. She didn't answer. Instead, she turned on the television. There he was, standing beside Cassandra, cameras flashing around them. His face was unreadable, his voice steady as he spoke. "This past week has been filled with misunderstandings," Adrian said smoothly. "But I want to set the record straight. Cassandra and I are still engaged, and we are looking forward to our future together." Vanessa's hands trembled as she shut off the screen. It was a lie, a performance, but the world wouldn't see it that way. They would only see her, the foolish woman who thought she could steal a man who was never hers to begin with. A deep, sharp pain settled in her chest. Adrian had done this to protect her, but all she could feel was betrayal. Chapter 8. The Price of Revenge. A Love That Refuses to Die. The betrayal burned. Vanessa had spent years steeling herself against heartbreak, against the cruelty of people like Cassandra, but she had never expected him to be the one to twist the knife. Adrian's press conference had been the final blow. He had stood beside Cassandra, reaffirming their engagement, painting Vanessa as nothing more than a mistake, a foolish woman who had overstepped. But Vanessa knew the truth. She had seen it in his eyes. He had done it to protect her, to end Cassandra's war before it could consume them both. And yet, it didn't make the pain any easier to bear. She sat alone in her apartment, staring at the dark city skyline, the weight of everything pressing down on her. Then, a knock at the door shattered the silence. She didn't want to answer, didn't want to see anyone, but something in her gut told her she had to. When she opened it, Adrian was standing there, drenched from the rain, looking at her as if he had made the biggest mistake of his life. Vanessa's breath caught. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice tight. Adrian didn't speak at first. He just stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Then finally he said, "I lied." Vanessa clenched her jaw. "I know." His shoulders sagged. "I thought I could fix this by keeping you out of it. I thought if I pushed you away, you'd be safe." She let out a hollow laugh. "And did it work?" Adrian ran a hand through his wet hair, his frustration evident. "No." She crossed her arms, willing herself to stay angry, to not fall for his tortured eyes. "You humiliated me, Adrian." "I know," he admitted, "and I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you, but I couldn't let Cassandra destroy you." Vanessa shook her head, the old bitterness rising again. "You still don't get it, do you? This was never just about me. You've been letting her control your life for years. You keep sacrificing yourself for everyone else. Julian, your company, your reputation. But what about you? When do you start fighting for what you actually want?" Adrian stared at her, silent. Then, barely above a whisper, he said, "I want you." Her heart clenched painfully. But before she could respond, another knock at the door interrupted them. Vanessa frowned, stepping past Adrian to open it, only to find a familiar face staring back at her. Julian Carter. His expression was urgent. "We have a problem." The three of them sat in Vanessa's living room, tension thick in the air. Julian didn't waste time. "I have proof," he said. "Cassandra fabricated the financial scandal that ruined my name." Vanessa's eyes widened. "What?" Julian tossed a file onto the table. "Emails, bank records, confidential reports. She set me up. And Adrian, she's been using this same leverage to control you all along." Adrian flipped through the papers, his expression darkening with every page. Vanessa watched as his hands curled into fists. "She's been manipulating me for years." Julian nodded grimly. "And now, she's gotten too comfortable. She thinks she's won. That means she'll slip up." Vanessa took a deep breath. "Then let's end this." Adrian met her gaze, something fierce and determined in his eyes. "We will." Cassandra didn't expect them to fight back. She had won the public war, after all. She had Vanessa disgraced, Adrian under her thumb, Julian buried under false accusations, but she had made one mistake. She underestimated them. That evening, they stormed her estate, walking straight past the startled servants. Vanessa was the one to push open the doors to Cassandra's private study. Her cousin sat at her desk, swirling a glass of wine, completely composed. "Well," Cassandra drawled, "if it isn't the tragic lovers and my dear fallen friend." Her gaze flicked to Julian. "I must say, I expected you to disappear quietly, but I suppose some people never learn." Adrian stepped forward. "It's over." Cassandra let out a slow, mocking laugh. "Is it?" Julian tossed the file onto her desk. "We have proof, Cassandra. The fraud, the blackmail, everything." For the first time, Cassandra's smirk faltered. Vanessa watched as she scanned the documents, her grip tightening on the glass. Adrian's voice was steel. "You're going to drop everything, the engagement, the control over my company, the threats against Julian, or this goes public." Cassandra's gaze snapped up, dark with rage. "You wouldn't." Adrian tilted his head. "Try me." For a long moment, silence hung between them. Then, Cassandra's mask cracked. She slammed the glass onto the desk, shards flying. "Do you have any idea what you're doing?" she hissed. "You're ruining everything." Vanessa took a step closer, her voice calm but firm. "No, Cassandra, we're taking back what's ours." Her cousin's chest rose and fell rapidly, her face twisting with hatred. But there was no escape. She had lost, and she knew it. Finally, Cassandra let out a bitter laugh, shaking her head. Fine. You win. But the moment they turned to leave, her voice cut through the air. But Adrian? He paused, glancing back. Cassandra's smile was cold. She's still not good enough for you. Vanessa stiffened, but Adrian didn't even flinch. Instead, he simply said, You never were. Then he took Vanessa's hand and walked away, leaving Cassandra alone in the ruins of her empire. The scandal surrounding Adrian and Cassandra's broken engagement erupted overnight. Cassandra had no choice but to disappear from the spotlight, her influence shattered. Julian's name was cleared. And as for Vanessa and Adrian, they found themselves standing on a quiet balcony weeks later, the storm behind them. Vanessa leaned against the railing, looking out at the city below. Adrian stepped behind her, his arms wrapping around her waist. No more sacrifices, she murmured. He pressed a kiss to her temple. No more. She turned to face him, searching his eyes. Are you sure? Adrian smiled softly. I spent years letting someone else dictate my life, but not anymore. He cupped her cheek. I love you, Vanessa, and I'm done running from that. A lump formed in her throat, but this time it wasn't from pain, it was from happiness. Slowly, she reached up, pulling him down into a kiss. This wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about love, and this time, they were free. Epilogue, 1 year later. The sun was setting over the vineyard, bathing the rolling hills in hues of gold and amber. The air smelled of fresh grapes, summer flowers, and something warm, something home. Vanessa stood at the edge of the terrace, a glass of wine in her hand, watching as the last rays of sunlight kissed the horizon. A soft breeze ruffled the hem of her white sundress, and she closed her eyes, breathing it all in. 1 year ago, her world had been consumed by revenge, betrayal, and heartbreak. Now, everything had changed. She felt a pair of strong arms wrap around her waist from behind, and she smiled as Adrian pressed a lingering kiss to her shoulder. Penny for your thoughts? He murmured. She leaned back against him, letting the steady rhythm of his heartbeat ground her. Just thinking about how different life is now. Adrian chuckled, his lips brushing against her ear. Better or worse? Vanessa turned in his arms, her hands settling on his chest. So much better. She wasn't lying. After Cassandra's downfall, Vanessa had finally reclaimed what was rightfully hers, not just the inheritance that had been stolen from her, but her own life. She had left the city behind, moving to the countryside to start fresh. The vineyard, once just a dream, was now thriving. She had spent months restoring it, turning it into a home, a business, and a sanctuary all at once. And through it all, Adrian had stayed by her side. No more secrets, no more sacrifices, just them. I have something for you, Adrian said suddenly, reaching into his pocket. Vanessa arched a brow as he pulled out a small velvet box. Her heart stopped. Adrian. He smirked, dropping to one knee, his deep blue eyes filled with nothing but love. For years, I let someone else dictate my life, but you reminded me what it means to choose happiness. He flipped open the box, revealing a simple but breathtaking diamond ring. So now I'm choosing us forever. Vanessa's breath hitched. Tears burned at the edges of her vision, but she didn't care. She dropped to her knees, throwing her arms around him. Yes, she whispered against his lips. 1,000 times, yes. As Adrian kissed her, the sun finally dipped below the horizon, wrapping them in twilight. A new beginning, a love that had survived the storm. And this time, there was no looking back. The end. Vanessa's journey was filled with betrayal, revenge, heartbreak, and unexpected love. But in the end, she found not just justice, but the happiness she truly deserved. I hope you enjoyed every twist, every slow burn moment, and every heart-stopping revelation along the way. But this isn't the end of dramatic, emotional, and suspenseful love stories. There's more to come. If you love romance with mystery, deep emotions, and jaw-dropping twists, make sure to subscribe so you never miss another story. Subscribe for more. Stay tuned for my next heart-wrenching love story. Drop a comment. What was your favorite moment? Thank you for being part of this journey. Until next time.